Hi everyone, this is Gina, and yes, I have a big mess in front of me. These are the things we are going to make today in this tutorial. They're very simple, fast-moving projects. So these earrings were in the previous tutorial, but I wanted you to see how well they matched these two sets that I'm going to make today. And we're also going to make a necklace set. Or not a necklace, well, a necklace set. Yes, I made some earrings to go with this. These little roses, you have one in your bag, but I have them on the website. So you can get two more to make a set of matching earrings to go with it. But we're going to make this necklace today. We're going to make a bracelet today. And we're going to make a pendant necklace. And I already did everything in the demure bag so that you can see what it looks like also. So this is how pretty this is. Just very sparkly, very, very pretty. Very simple, but elegant in its simplicity, and I like that. And then here is what it looks like from the beads in the demure bag, which are the clear triangle beads. It's like this. And it turns out really, really pretty. So that's what we're doing today, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, for this tutorial today, we're going to make a couple projects and finish up the treasure bag. So we are going to be using both the demure and the sophisticated, of course. I'm going to be making the sophisticated color selection in this particular video. I've already made the demure, and in a previous video I made some earrings that will match beautifully to this set, and I made a different set of earrings that will match very nicely to this set. So you can find that on the previous video, the instructions for those. So what we're going to be using is the shell beads. In both bags, you have a strand of shell beads, Heishi shell beads like this. And the sophisticated, they are gray. And in the demure, they are this peachy, creamy color. Then we'll be using the 4mm round beads in each bag. You have a strand. And in the demure, they are this peach color. In the sophisticated, they're this gray color. Then we'll be using some of the 8x5 flat rondelle crystal beads, our electroplated faceted glass beads. These we'll be using, of course, gray in the sophisticated bag and the golden color in the demure bag. We will also be adding to in the treasure bag, you have a pendant. So in the sophisticated bag, you have this one. And in the demure bag, you have this one. So these are your dyed jade pendants. And we'll be using that. We'll be also using a variety of jump rings. I have about a 6 to 7mm. And I am just making an extender with that. So the amount that you use is dependent upon how long you want to make your extender. This one I have made 6 in for my extender. And I've also made an extender on the bracelet, and I used a little bit bigger and heavier jump ring. I think they're actually around 6mm, but they're a little bit heavier jump ring. For a bracelet, it gets beat around a little bit more. So you'll just need some jump rings for your extenders. I'm using a lobster claw clasp on both pieces, a little lobster claw, and I will be using 4 wire guardians, 2 for each project or each item, and I will be using 2 head pins. I'm using a little ball head pin because we'll be making dangles for both the bracelet and the necklace. I'm going to be using some crimp tubes, and this is a size 2 crimp tube, and it is a bead-along, and it is in the golden color. We will also be using some bead caps. Now you can do this without the bead caps. They're not necessary. I just like them because they add a little bit of a boost to something simply strong, and so a little bit more interest. So I am going to be using some of these 4-petal bead caps. I had some on my website, but I think they might have sold out already. So you can use whatever you have on hand. Maybe you bought some of these from me and you have them, or perhaps you just don't want to use them at all. They are optional. We will also be using some bead stringing wire. This is Beading 49 strand, and I just messed up my lights. Hold on, guys. Sorry about that. 1, 2, 3. I think that's it. It just seems awfully dark in my camera. So anyway, this is what we're going to be using. 49 strand Beading. This is the smaller diameter, so it's 0.018 inch or 0.46 millimeter. You can use a medium sized bead stringing wire also. That'll work just fine. So you can use soft flex, you can use Beading. Whatever you have on hand will work just fine. I have cut about 25 inches of my bead stringing wire. I'm only making an 18-inch necklace, so this is a little excessive. I just wasn't paying attention. So you can cut probably about 22 inches of this. You don't necessarily have to have as much as I have. Then I think that's it. So let's go ahead and get started with this project. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to put about a 4 millimeter in diameter, outside diameter jump ring onto our pendant. And I may have forgotten that in the material list, but you will need one smaller jump ring. Find the opening of the jump ring, it's right here, and just position it in your pliers so that your pliers on to one side of that opening, and then we have to grab another pair of pliers, there they are, and position it on the other side, and we'll just twist that open just like that, and then we are going to slide it on the loop of the pendant just to prepare it so it hangs properly on our bead stringing wire. And then we're just going to close the jump ring, and of course this one's a little weird, so let me doctor it up a little bit. Sometimes they're just not cut well, especially the thinner diameter ones. They seem to be cut worse than the thicker gauges of wire. So this is what we have now, and we are just going to work from the middle out. So we are going to grab our bead stringing wire, our Beading, and string that jump ring you just put on. String the jump ring you just put on onto the wire, and then just center it on the wire. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to move around at this stage, but we're just going to get it somewhere in the middle here. Just like that. And I'm going to see if I can rearrange this camera a little bit, just so I stay in camera. There we go. Now we are going to begin by putting, excuse me, I'm sorry. We're going to put a 4 millimeter round, our little opaque faceted beads. We're going to put one on either side. So of course, if you're doing the demure bag, you will be putting on your peach color ones. And just make sure that they go on either side of that jump ring. The jump ring wants to kind of do weird things, straighten it out, and bring them down. Then we're going to put on a bead cap on both sides. And then we're going to put on a rondelle on both sides. And I'll kind of lay out the pattern for you, and then we can string this off camera too, so you don't have to put up with me. Now I'm not going to put a bead cap on the outside, just on the inside, and then I'm going to pick up about, I think I did 6 or 7, 1, 2, about 7 of my shell beads. So I'm just going to, these tend to be different in in thickness. So why aren't you coming off of there? Let me cut this a little bit better. So you may have to choose to get the same amount on either side to make it symmetrical. You may have to kind of pick and choose your beads. So if you have a really thin one, then you'll want to do a thick one, just so that you can kind of balance out the beads and have the correct size on each side, or the correct width of your strung beads. I'll show you what I mean. I know that didn't make a lot of sense. So I have 4, 5, I've got a few thick ones, so I'll put a thin one on, 6, and then 7. Okay. So then when I do it on the other side, I'm just going to make sure that I have the same amount so it's symmetrical. So like on this one, when I lay them together, they look the same. So if it isn't exactly 7 beads, if you have to put on 8 because you have a couple thin ones, that's fine. If you have to put on 6, that's fine, just as long as they look symmetrical. So I'm going to put on 7 more here. Oops. It's easier to just slide them off the wire. That's why I left it on there, or on the stuff that it's already strung on. But for some reason, mine are not sliding off that well. So I'm just going to have to pick them up, and I hope you can bear with me. So now I'm just going to look at it, and they look pretty symmetrical. So I will then pick up another rondelle. On both sides. And then I'm going to pick up a bead cap on both sides. So basically, I am just bead capping this entire segment from the rondelle, shell beads, rondelle, and then bead cap, so you can see. And we'll get just a little closer so you can see what it's looking like. And I'll put a bead cap on this side. And once I have done this, then I'm going to narrow the next segment by putting on 5 of my 4mm round opaque beads. So again, you'll be using the peach for the demure, and I will put these gray ones on. Oops. And then I will put a bead cap on, facing out, so that it will go around my rondelle. Now I am just going to center, because I'm putting the 2 ends of my bead stringing wire together and just centering everything, because now it should stay pretty centered for me. I have enough weight on it that it should stay. So we will do the 5 on this side, and then I will just show you the bead stringing sequence, and we will go off camera and do that. So I didn't have any off my strand, and I couldn't figure out what to do. Oh no. I tell you, sometimes my brain worries me a little bit. So we are going to pick up 5 of these. Then we are going to pick up a bead cap. We are going to do the rondelles now, and then we'll just repeat the sequence. So this is your basic sequence right here. Once you get to this point, then you're just going to repeat the exact same sequence. So you will do your, let me show you on the one that's already done. So you can pause it if you would like, so you can see exactly what we're doing. But this is what we're doing. We have come to this point right here, and we just repeat. So we will put on our shell beads, and then 5 more, and our rondelles, 5 more of our 4mm round, and then our bead caps, rondelle, shells, bead cap, 5 more of your little rounds, and then 1 more section with your rondelles and your shells. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections of your shells and rondelles, and 3 sections of the 4mm rounds. Then on the back here, it's optional how many you want to put on. I did also put a couple of my 8/0 seed beads back here, so I'll probably grab a couple of those gray silver line that came in my bag for my sophisticated, and put a couple of those on too. But depending upon how long you want to make your necklace, you can put more or less of these beads back here. This is an 18-inch necklace with an extender. Let me make sure about that, because it may be, let's see. Yes, it is 18 inches, and then it has a little over, about an 1.5 inch extender on it. So it'll be a 19 to 20 inch necklace if you use the extender. So I have used on the back 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, about 13 of my 4mm rounds. So again, because I've been just jabbering, I will just put this in camera, and you can pause it here, and you can see exactly what the sequence is, so that, let me get it a little closer. If you are watching it on a device that you can pinch the screen and enlarge it, that will help too. But I'll be quiet for a second. Okay, so you can just pause on that and string, and I will be right back. I'm going to do both sides. When you get one side done, use a bead stop so that your beads don't fall off, and we'll be back. Okay, so as you can see, I have strung the entire piece. I, on the ends, then put on 2 8/0 seed beads and a crimp tube after I've done my 13 4mm rounds here, or however many you think you would like to put on there to make your length. So I've got my 2 8/0s, and then I've got my crimp tube. I'm going to make sure my necklace is centered on the wire by putting the 2 ends together, and then just pull your pendant down and make sure everything is centered so you have the same amount of wire to work with on both sides. Then you're going to just use a bead stopper or clip or whatever you have and put it on one side of the necklace. Then we are going to grab a wire guardian on the other side here, and let's get in a little closer. So I am just going to grab my wire guardian and go up through one side of it. Then I'm going to go through the other side of it. And as I do this, as I go through the other side, I'm just going to kind of back up my wire guardian a little bit so I can then go into my crimp tube. That's why I like to have extra wire on the end. It just makes it easier. If you have a very short wire, it's very difficult to maneuver. So I am going through these 2 8/0 seed beads, the crimp tube, the 2 8/0s. Then I'm just going to pull on my wire and draw it all down like this. Let's see if I can get it so you can see it. And then I'm just going to kind of squeeze my wire guardian together a little so that it's centered over that crimp tube a little bit better. Then I'm going to grab my crimping tool, which of course I do not have out because that would be being prepared and I am not. So I'm just going to place in the second divot, the one closest to the handle, I'm going to place that crimping tube right center, and I am going to squeeze. Now I have a little divot in the middle of my crimp tube. I have two little tubes on either side. I am then going to go to the first divot on my crimping tool, place the crimp tube in there sideways so the two little tubes that are encasing the wire are touching the tool, and then I'm going to squeeze again. And now I have a proper crimp and a nice and secure crimp. I'm then going to just cut. I'm going to get my flush cutters. I'm going to pull on this wire, put my flush cutters right against those 8/0 seed beads and cut. Then I can just kind of adjust it so that that wire goes inside the 8/0s, and we're done with that. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So go ahead and put your wire guardian on this side, and we'll come back and put on our clasping. Okay, so both sides are finished now. When you finish this side, just make sure you pull all the slack out. Even if you got a little slack on this side, when you finish this side, you pull all the slack out and it tightens everything up. You do not have to leave any space because of the way that we have reduced in between the larger units. You do not need that space for the beads to expand. You actually need it tightened to hold everything together. So pull all the slack out and put on your wire guardian, and then we're going to join some jump rings together and put them on one side. We'll make a little dangle, and then we'll put our lobster claw on the other side. So we're just going to pick up a 6 to 7 millimeter round jump ring, and we are just going to open it. Put your plier on either side where it opens and just crank it open, just like this. And then you're going to grab another jump ring and put it on there and close it. I'm just distorting this jump ring. I don't know what my deal is with that, but let me see if I can fix it. Okay, so you just twist it open, then you just twist it shut. These are kind of thin, and I kind of distorted it, but I fixed it. So now I have put 4 together already, and I am just going to open this one, and it needs to be trimmed a little. Some of these ends just don't close. If they don't close flush, then you need to cut off just enough to where you can close it and they will close flush. Sometimes they're overlapped. You don't want them overlapped. So now I'm just putting on the 2 that I already open or already put together, and onto the 4 that I put together. So now I have 6 jump rings together like this. And I am just going to grab one of them and again find the opening. The more surface you cover on your jump ring when you put your pliers on either side, the less likely you are to distort it. So I'm just going to crank it open like that. This time, even though it's not a real heavy gauge, it's opened nice and smoothly for me and no distortion. Now I'm going to put it on the wire guardian on my necklace and close it again. Just twist it shut, and I have an extension. Now I want to put my lobster claw on this side, and then we'll make a little drop for the other side, a little dangle. So same thing, just find the opening of your jump ring. This is like a 4 to 5 millimeter round, and again I'm going to use these pliers and crank it open like this. Grab your lobster claw clasp. I want to position it so that my little spring is to the outside here. So let me do this again. I am going to put it onto the wire guardian first, and then I'm going to drop this on so that I know that my little spring mechanism is towards the outside. And then I will close the jump ring. Okay, so now I have functional clasping here, but I'm going to go ahead and make a little dangle just to make it pretty, add a little interest. So I have a head pin, and I am just going to drop on a bead cap. Then I'm going to drop on one of my rondelles and another bead cap. This isn't a very long head pin. Duh, I can't talk. But I'm still going to try to do a little wire wrap. Actually, I can just bend this over the top and I'll just coil this. So I'm just bending this wire over the top because it's a fairly thin gauge also, and I can just coil this. You can do a wrapped loop or you can do a basic loop too, depending upon what kind of head pin you have. Since I have a fairly soft one, I'm just going to go to the very end here of my wire, and I'm just going to turn as far as I can, take my plier out, turn it over, put it back in, try to stay in the same spot of my plier and just start to coil, making sure that each coil goes in front of the last one and not on top of it. And I'll just coil it down until it's very tight. Make sure I don't have a pokey where I started here by putting my pliers back in and just squishing it down so that I have a little unit like this. Then I can squeeze those little coils together. I can open my jump ring on the end here. And drop that on. Okay, so now we have a beautiful necklace. I think the sophisticated one, I like the color. I mean, it just pops more to me. Even though I love this one, I think the sophisticated one really popped with the gold and the gray together and the black. I think that's really pretty. They're both very pretty, but this one is just kind of popping to me. So those are my two necklaces. Now I'm going to make a bracelet that looks like this. So what you'll want together are all the same things again, jump rings and a lobster claw clasp and all the same beads. I am again going to use some bead caps, and you're going to cut about a 12-inch piece of bead stringing wire to get started. Again, that is excessive. However, that is the way I like to work. So if you want to cut less, of course you can. This, I believe, is about I think it's about probably a 7-inch bracelet. I don't know with the extender. Let me measure it just so you can get an idea, so you know what you need to do. So this is not quite a 7.5-inch bracelet from the first jump ring to the end of the clasp. And it's 7.5 inches. Well, not quite. 7.25 actually. 7.25 inches. So I put a couple of more jump rings on here and a little dangle to make it a little longer. But that kind of gives you an idea if you need to make another section, or if you want to make your sections longer so that you get a little bit bigger bracelet, or do just the opposite to get a shorter bracelet. And I will be right back. I have to cut some wire and get ready. Okay, so I have cut 12 inches of wire. And the first thing I'm going to do is pick up a crimp tube and put it on my wire. And then I'm going to pick up my wire guardian. And I am going to slide it through one side of the wire, the beading wire through one side of the wire guardian. And then I'm going to slide it through the other side of the wire guardian. And I am not going to go through the crimp tube yet because I want to drop on my lobster claw. So It's a little much on that side, so I'm just going to pull my wire through so I don't have so much on the short side, but I have cut plenty of wire so I can have however much I need. Now I'm just going to slide on my lobster claw, bring it up and into the wire guardian, which this one seems to not want to fit. So let me see what the issue is here, because I've done this before. All right, let me grab a different lobster claw. Just depends on the size of the loop. Okay, get on there. All right, I got him on there. So now we have our lobster claw on the wire guardian. I'm going to move down my crimp tube and slide it up over the short end of the wire and slide it up to my wire guardian. Then I'll just pull on both sides and make sure I can bring that right up to the wire guardian. I'm going to close the wire guardian just a little bit. Make sure that my beading wire is not crossed inside the crimp tube. Then I will grab my crimping tool in the second divot, the one closest to the handle. I am going to center that divot right on that crimp tube and squeeze. Then I am going to position it sideways on the crimp tube, so the two little tubes that were formed from the first crimp are on or touching the tool, and then squeeze again. And now I have crimped like this. Then I am just going to grab my flush cutters, and on the shortest wire I'm going to place that as close to the crimp tube as I can, pull on the wire and cut. And now my bracelet has a beginning. So the way we are going to string this one is we're going to do sections of bead cap, if you have bead caps, and then a rondelle. And I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 again in between my rondelles, another bead cap, and then 3 of my 4mm rounds. And I'm just going to repeat that. Now it looks like I was not very smart and put a bunch extra on this one. I just noticed that. So in order to get my length, I think I'm going to do, because how many I have on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 9 on that one. So I'm just going to do 8 on each one to make sure I have the length I want. And of course, we're just working with what's left of our beads, so we have to kind of keep that in mind too. So I am going to put on my bead cap and then a rondelle, and then I will pick up, I'm going to do 8 of these little beads. The night I designed that other one, I was very tired. I was getting ready to go to Nebraska to see my son, and yeah, it shows that I was tired. Okay, so I have 8 on there, and then I am going to pick up a rondelle and a bead cap. And that way I'll get a little bit more length and maybe need a little less extension, whatever, but it should work out fine. So this is what I have, and this bead is shaped funny, and it's not, and it's drilled way to the edge, and it's not allowing my bead cap and rondelle to lay nice. So I'm going to replace it and put on a different one. Then I'm going to put on 3 of my round beads. and a bead cap and a rondelle. And I'm just going to repeat that. And I have done 4 sections of shell and 3 sections of the little 4mm round. So the shell, I'm including the rondelles, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and string this, and I'll come back and show you exactly what we've got, and we will end it and put our clasp and extension on. So what I've done to prep for this is I've gotten a little bit heavier jump ring, a little bit heavier gauge, and I've put 4 jump rings onto a little component like I showed you to make for the dangle for the necklace, exactly the same. And I just have that prepped and ready so that I can do my clasping. So we'll do a wire guardian and we'll put on our jump rings. So let's go ahead and string this and we'll be right back. Okay, I have strung my bracelet, and what I have done, I changed it a little bit because I found that these Heishi shell beads are a little bit thinner than these. Plus I counted these and I did put quite a bit more. Some of them have 12, some of them have 10. I think because of the different thicknesses, these ones tend to be a little bit more irregular in thickness. I was just kind of trying to negotiate each one to be about the same size. So on this one, as a basic rule, because you can subtract or add, this one I actually only put 8 beads. I put 9 beads in between each one, and I put 4 of the round beads in between each section. And you can see I ended up with the same length with this one, with less of the rounds and a few more of the big ones, so, or of the Heishi beads. So you just have to kind of figure out how many you want to put in each section. But this is what I did on this one. I put on 9 of the Heishi beads, sometimes 8 if I had a very thick one or 2 in there that made the same length as the others, then I put 8, and this one in particular. But 9 and 4, and I did 4 sections of the Heishi beads, 3 sections of the 4mm rounds. Ended on a rondelle bead cap, and then I'm going to put on a crimp tube. And I'm not going to drop it completely down because it's going to fall into my bead cap. So I'm just going to hold it here and grab a wire guardian and put the wire guardian through one side. Then I'm going to put the wire through the other side of the wire guardian. I'm going to slide down. I think I want to go through a couple of these beads. So I'm going to go through the bead cap and the rondelle here. And then I'm just going to hold on to the part of the loop that is stable. The other side moves as you pull it. I'm going to pull it as close as I can, and then I am going to pull it down. I'm going to push from the crimp tube. I'm going to push that down against my beads so that I can tighten this more. Now I will pull some more slack in. Do that again. You can do that as many times as you need just to tighten everything up. And of course, you know your wire is going to make a little gap. Just get it as tight as you can. And then you can go ahead and crimp your crimp tube, just like we've been doing. Second divot first, first divot second, and there you have it. Now I'm just going to kind of bend my bracelet, and I am going to get my flush cutters and cut this as close as I can so that it slides up into the rondelle. So just make sure you only get the tail and cut that. And now I have a bracelet. Now this, from the tip of the wire, or of the lobster claw clasp to the end of the wire guardian, is about 7 inches. Yeah. It's a little over 7 inches. So let me show you actually in the camera here. So you can get an idea of maybe shortening your length or lengthening your length, whatever you want to do. So it is, let's get it lined up here. It is about 7 1/4 inches. Now, I'm just going to open the jump rings I put on my little beaded component here, and I am going to put this on the wire guardian. If I can find the tools I want. There we go. Okay, and move all this out of the way. And now I have, oh, come here. I have a cute little bracelet. So let me show you the set. And then I think I'm going to do one more project. We have the little rose pendants, and I want to use all the major components for everybody because a lot of people ask me, you know, to use as much in the bag as I can because they don't like designing. So, you know, I think I'll use those in a real quick, easy design, and we'll call it good for this bag. But, all right, let me back off and bring my camera down, and you can see my messy bead mat if I do that. All right, so this is what we have. Isn't that cute? And just the colors are so nice. I know it's a simple strung project, but sometimes the simpler the piece, the more of a statement it makes. And I think this one is just really pretty. And of course, this one is too. So let me put it out so you can see it. If you have the demure bag, it's just as pretty. And there's that one. And then here's the bracelet. Okay, so those are those two sets. Now I am going to grab a few things together. We'll do one more very quick project and we'll call it good. Okay, so the next project is going to be using this little rose that came in your bag. So you got one in both bags, so regardless of what color selection you had, you have one of these roses. I also have them on my website in packages of 3. So if you would like to get some more, you can make a really simple, you can just drop them on and make a pair of earrings to match this necklace we're going to make. So this is the necklace we're going to make. I made it with the beads in the demure bag. We have triangle beads in both bags. We have in the demure bag clear and in the sophisticated bag black. Now the black ones are a little bit bigger than the clear ones, so I may use a little less, but I used 15 on each side. I am also going to be using, I'm adding to my bag some Coreana beading chain, and I have, or Coreana style basically. I have this on my website also if you'd like to get some. So I'm going to use about 18.5 inches. The 1/2 inch is so that I can trim the ends when I put on my clasping ends. So I have, like I said, 18.5 inches of that. I have my triangle beads, and then I'm going to add to the bag 4 little spacer beads. So I have these little alloy golden tone cube little looking spacer beads. You can use any little small spacer bead you'd like. You could even use 8/0 seed beads or 6/0 seed beads if you'd like. Just a little spacer for the middle here and the ends of the necklace. So I have 4 of those. I have a 4mm, a 6mm, and an 8mm jump ring, a lobster claw clasp, 2 clamshell ends and 4 crimp tubes. These are size 2 bead along crimp tubes. You can also do this with a size 1. With the size 1, you can just you can just squish it onto the beading wire instead of using the size 2. But most people have size 2 on hand. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the size 2. So you'll need a crimping tool and a couple ear wires if you get some extra little roses and you want to make some earrings. So the little set looks like this. It's a pretty cute set. Then, let's see, what else do we need? I think that's it. So let's go ahead and get started with this project. So I'm going to move these aside and grab the beading chain. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my 4mm jump ring and my rose. I'm going to open the jump ring and put it on the rose. So just grab a pair of pliers, find the opening, which is right here, and I'm going to get you a little closer, and place a plier on either side and twist open. Then we're just going to place this right onto the loop on the little rose pendant and close it. Close it tightly, yes, so that it doesn't fall off your chain, and then slide it onto your chain from the jump ring. And then just center it in the middle. I want to find which side, that's the front. Okay, so I'm just putting the 2 ends of my chain together and just moving the rose into the middle. Then I'm just going to part my 2 chains like this. Let me get you out here so you can see what I'm doing. Let's see. We want to go this way. And oh goodness sakes. Okay, like that, I guess. All right. So now we are going to start to bead onto our chain on either side of the rose. I'm going to start with one of my little spacer beads, and again, you can use whatever you would like. I'm just going to drop one down on both sides. You can also stiffen up the end of your beading chain if you need to, by putting a little bit of super glue on the end and letting it harden. Then you can pick up your beads a little easier. I haven't done that, but what I am going to do is make sure my ends are cut nicely because they seem a little rough. So I'm just going to flush cut them. And this little spacer bead is being kind of weird. So I'm going to put another one on. I know I have them. Where did I put them? Okay. Because it feels like it's not sliding down nice on the chain. Feels like there's something impeding it on the inside of the bead. So we're just going to change that. There. Now, center it again. And split the 2 sides apart. Open up my triangle beads, and I'll just start stringing on triangle beads. Like I said, I use 15 of the clear ones. I'm not sure exactly how many I want to use of this one, but I'm going to probably go for 15. Even if it's a little longer, it doesn't matter. You can put as many or as few of these on that you would like. You can also use whatever beads you would like. You don't have to do this with the triangle beads. It's just that we hadn't used them yet. And I really wanted to touch on most everything that's in the bag so that people feel like they have a pretty good guide with their bag. So, that one. These are more triangle shaped than the other ones. They're a little bit more nugget. So I'm going to try to take it to where all the triangle beads lay the same on here. I'm going to get you in just a little closer so you can see what that looks like. And I'm just going to continue beading the triangle beads on until I have 15 of them. Then I'll put another spacer bead on either side, and I'll come back and show you how to stabilize your beads and how to end the chain. And if I didn't say it in the material list, you're going to need 2 clamshell ends, clamshell tips like this. Okay, I'll be back. Okay. So now I have put my beads on both sides, and actually it took 19 for me to get the same amount of length of my embellishment on here. So these lay together a little tighter, and the hole is a little bit bigger. So even though the black ones seem like they looked bigger on the strand, they're not. Actually, the white or the clear ones are a little bit longer. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same anyway. You can do as many or as few as you'd like. So I've put 19 on both sides. And then I dropped my little spacer beads down on both sides. Now I'm going to get 2 size 2 crimp tubes, and I'm first going to center this. So put your ends together and center it. If it's uneven at all at the end after we do this, we can cut them. But right now I've got it pretty even. I've got it centered. I'm going to pick up a crimp tube on one side here and drop it down to my beads. And then I'm just going to leave it laying on my bead mat. I'm going to use the more flat side of my crimping tool, and I'm going to grab a hold of the chain, lift it a little bit, and get that crimp tube right inside the second divot, and I'm going to squeeze it once. Now you can see things moved around a little bit, so at the very end I cut a ½ inch extra so we can trim the ends. But I'm basically in the spot I started in, and I've squeezed, and now I have a little fold in the middle of this crimp tube. If I can get it to turn to show you. And there we go. Let me get it really close. So you can see I have just crimped it right down onto the chain. I have the fold right on top of the chain, and then I'm going to put it in sideways in my crimping tool. So those 2 little tubes that are formed when you squeeze it in the first divot are touching the tool, and I'm going to squeeze it again. And then I'm just going to kind of go around it in this front divot here and just kind of reduce it and squeeze it to the chain a little bit. So it's a nice round shape, a really pretty crimp. And I know I was close. I hope I actually was in camera. And now I'm going to push this side of the beads over to that crimp tube. Just like that. So now I know that I have something to work against. I've got a little tension on it, and I can do this next crimp tube and secure everything into place. Now, you don't want to be, these beads, you can get pretty tied up to the end bead here with your crimp tube without really distorting or stiffening your beads because of the flexibility and the small size of these beads. So I'm just putting the crimp tube on there. I'm again going to use the flat side of my crimping tool. I'm going to place it onto that crimp tube, kind of gently push down so that it is against that spacer bead, and then I'm going to squeeze. And now you can see, boy, it doesn't want to cooperate with me to show you guys. You can see the V fold in the middle there, and then I'm just going to put it into my crimping tool and squeeze it again. And it likes to move. It's kind of a challenge at times because it likes to move around, but I finally got it, and then I can just kind of squeeze it a couple more times just to make sure you stay in that first divot though. Boy, it's just moving around everywhere for me. Okay, well that's good. So, and I really hope I'm in camera. I just don't pay enough attention to that. Now I'm going to lay my necklace out so that I can see how centered my ends are. So I'm laying it out. It's like this. So my end is down here. I'm going to make sure my two spacer beads are together so that I know that these ends are lining up properly. Pull on my flower, and you can see I have a discrepancy in the length on the ends here. So I'm just going to grab my end cutter or my flush cutter and just trim that down so that they are flush. Now I'm going to grab, let's get in a little bit again. I'm going to grab one of the ends here, and I'm going to put on a clamshell from the bottom, right through the hole in the bottom, making sure that the clamshell is open towards the top of your chain here. And I'm just going to drop it down. Then I'm going to grab one of my crimp tubes, and again I'm just going to kind of lay it on the bead mat. I have put, let me get it over here so you guys can see. I have put it down to where there is a little bit of chain hanging out, a couple millimeters, 2-3 millimeters. Oh, get back in there, just like that. And then I can trim that, but it helps me to be able to grab a hold of it and do this. So actually I'm going to put it in my crimping tool. Come here. You know how it goes. I'm going to grab it in the first divot, then I can pick it up and scoot it to the second divot, just like that. Then I'm going to slide my chain in, and I'm going to have about 3 millimeters of chain hanging out and squeeze. Then I'm going to turn it over. I've got my nice V-fold right there. Put it in my crimp tool sideways and squeeze it again. Then I'm going to cut this down to where there's just about maybe a millimeter of excess hanging out, just like that. Now you can bring up your end, your little clamshell, and squeeze it shut. And then the way I like to do it is I like to grab my flat nose pliers. I give the belly a squeeze. Make sure that your little circles are lined up so that you can get a jump ring through there, and then give them a squeeze. Just like that. We'll do the other side the same way, but I am going to go ahead and put my clasping on so I can go off camera and do the other side and keep this short since we're doing multiple projects. So I need another small, I guess I didn't put out enough jump ring. Well, I did. I put out a 6 millimeter for this one, which I can use. I kind of like to have a little smaller than that, but that's okay. Let me see. Yeah, I'm going to use this size here. So I'm going to, this is a 4 or 5, something like that. And I'm going to open it just like I've been showing you. Slide it onto the clamshell and then put my clasp on it and close it. Now I'm going to crimp the other side. I'll slide my clamshell on first and then crimp it and draw it up and do everything exactly like I did on this side, and then I'll just put an 8 millimeter jump ring through the end here. So I'll be right back. I guess I'm out of camera again. So I've got an 8 millimeter jump ring, and I'm going to put on my little clamshell end, and that has disappeared. So, oh, here it is. my little clamshell and my crimping tube, and then I'm going to slide an 8mm jump ring through it. And I'll be right back. Okay, so here's what my finished necklace looks like. I laid them out so you can see the ends here that we just finished. Just very simple finish. And then I've made the earrings, and all I did was grab an ear wire and open the loop. Just grab it like you do a jump ring and just twist it up like that. If you can see that, I don't even know. And then we are going to make sure that we're holding it with the horseshoe and loop forward here, and we're going to put the side that has the imprint on the leaves forward. That's the front. Drop it on and then just close it, and voila, you have a earring. So let me put this together and let you see what these look like. Okay, so that, yeah, it did. I did it right. I did it right. There we go. Okay, and those are very, very simple, very, very pretty, fast, make a great gift. And like I said, there's more roses on my website, so if you want one, you can certainly get, well, they're in packs of 3, so you can get 3. And the beading chain is there also, so if you need some beading chain, you can get some. And on my website, it's listed as Coreana style beading chain. So you'll look on the chain and findings page to find it. And these will be on the pendants page. I think I do have some triangle beads. I don't know how many I have left, and I don't know how many colors. I just had a big sale and a lot of things are gone. I'll be restocking some of my things that I keep pretty much as staples, and I always have triangle beads, so I will have some soon if I don't have a big selection. Anyway, that's what we've got, and we also made a really pretty shell set and bracelet. So, oh, and I wanted to show you this set with the earrings. So pretty. So let's move all this stuff. I have too much stuff to lay out now, and I don't know what to do with it all. Okay, so how am I going to do this? I'm just going to pull those over to one side and lay this so you can see how pretty this is with these earrings. And the shell one is just as pretty with the other earrings I made. And of course you can make this style in this color, or you can make this style in this color. So, you know, you can do it how you want to do it. I'll show you this one with the earrings. Let's turn it this way. And you can see how pretty those are together. Let's put this one in here, and then we can put the little bracelets. Turned out really pretty. This one isn't clasped, but that's fine. So now that's what we have with those, and this one, and this one. Ugh, come on. Way too much stuff going on here, and not enough room to put it all in here. So that is a pretty good little haul. They're very quick projects. You can do them pretty quickly, have them for gifts for the holiday season or whatever the heck you want to do with them. Sell them, you know, whatever. And wear them. That's always a good option. And we will see ya. I want to show you, oh, if you're wondering what I'm wearing, I just designed these this morning. I made this bracelet, and my lighting is weird today. I made this bracelet and these little rings this morning, so I'll be making a tutorial for them very soon. This little leaf wants to keep moving weird, but there's a little grape leaf right there, and I've been wearing this for several hours, so it's kind of weird. There we go. That's how that's supposed to lay. But anyway, that's what this looks like, and that will be coming very soon. My son is moving in the next week, so I'll try to get a few tutorials ahead, and we'll just release them, schedule them out. So I don't know exactly when they'll be ready. This tutorial will be next, and then I'll start working on a tutorial for this and a tutorial for these little dangle rings, which turned out just adorable. Anyway, that's that for today, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.